Hey family, this is your girl Nachi, and I'm here with.
Damaris, the legendary sweet tart.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, I like to uh I like to describe
That's
myself as sweet and tart sometimes. Or maybe others
great
describe me as that.
combination. Great
Mm.
combination.
So. Today, we're here to discuss a fascinating topic. This topic brings me back to a friend whose mother told him in life, you only have to do two things. That's be black and pay taxes. I
Okay.
was like, damn, she's not wrong. And today we're going to talk about the latter. So we have the pleasure of talking with Tariqah Mills, CPA extraordinaire from none other than Harlem, NYC, Harlem Stand Up,
Okay.
New York Stand Up,
Hey,
thank you.
hey.
She runs her own accounting firm, T3 Accounting Services, helping hundreds of individual and small business owners alike in planning for the best tax strategies. She's personally helped me and my husband for over 7 years, and I can attest to the fantastic work she's done for us and how she cares about delivering the best services. We love supporting homegrown businesses, and furthermore, we know that while this may not seem like an exciting topic, it's an important one for small business owners and individual payers. We're going to get into information and tips that may help you for this year and beyond. Obviously, this goes without saying, consult with your tax preparer to apply the information that best suits you. Don't add us with, this didn't work for me. No, talk to, but figure
Yes.
out what works best for you.
Right.
So,
Right.
without further ado, welcome to Rika.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Rika.
Wow, what a great intro. Thanks, Maris. That is so nice. It's always nice to
Mm,
hear, good things. And
yes,
so then I appreciate that. I'm like all smiles right now. I'm cheesing like from
yes,
ear to ear,
well deserved.
literally. Yeah,
Well,
no,
you
thank
deserve
you.
it, and you deserve your flowers, and it's always important to
Thanks.
get it, real time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no,
Same
for real.
So,
here.
And it's nice to have it kind of hearing it directly also, and even in
right,
this environment, more particularly. So I
right.
appreciate you ladies for inviting me down.
Yes, no,
Yes,
so
of
we're so
course.
excited to talk through this. And before we get into the nitty gritty, can you share a little bit about your background and whatever else you'd like our listeners to know?
Oh, absolutely. And so then immediately, let me just say it's Tariqah Mills. I'm a licensed CPA with the state of New York. So that's certified public accountant. And yes, been operating my own firm, started and founded about 10 years ago, born and raised in Harlem. And so then one of the more important practical ideas of this concept of giving back to where you started and from a community that pretty much I could attest to also has groomed me to be where I'm at today is that Harlem area. So born and raised in Harlem, how important it is to come back and have some footing in giving back to the community. And so, with that, T3 Accounting Services, a boutique accounting CPA licensed firm offering taxation services to individuals year round, and boutique in a nature to say that you get the opportunity to work directly with myself as the licensed CPA. And so, then a bit different than working with a tax preparer, meaning you pretty much will see me each tax year that you come back, and this year marking our 10th year of operations. I think what Damaris said in regards to taxes not always being the most favorable topic.
Right.
However, definitely one that I like to say, and from what I hear with a lot of our clients, is making the information in
Mm-hmm.
layman terms understandable, but
Right.
also to say, oh, you know what, I could do that too. So, managing your taxes or understanding your tax structure, what's your best tax situation, and what things are most
Mm-hmm.
advantageous doesn't yield itself for the high end wage earner, or doesn't yield itself only to the business owner that's earning mid six figures to $1 million. You can be a low wage earner and still make sure you have the right tax strategies in
Mm-hmm.
place for your overall tax situation. And then lastly, we opened up a Georgia office in
Okay.
Fayetteville
Oh, nice.
earlier this year. So,
Expanding.
but nevertheless,
We were talking through about how we wanted to discuss this topic. I
yeah.
think it was important that we level set what it is, how we're describing the different kind of tax paying entities, right? So
Hmm.
we're talking about small business owners, the individual taxpayers, and then even I think, yeah, the individual business owners that are considered like sole proprietors,
Yeah,
separate from small business
corporate.
owners. So for the purpose of this conversation, can you just like in layman's terms, like you said before,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, at high level definition of like what are those different type of taxpayers?
Yeah, and I think that's important because sometimes you may have across those, and you, I think you named them like very squarely, across those three different tax entities and sorts
Hmm.
could be a bit commingled. So
Right.
the most easiest, and I think for most of us individual taxpayers, we see ourselves maybe as the wage earner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, we go to work, we know we're going to get what's called that W-2. We need to be cognizant of what that W-2, which is only, distributed once a year and should be properly aligned with those pay stubs that you're looking at each week, or
Hmm.
every if you're paid every 2 weeks or twice a month. And ultimately that becomes the individual, taxpayer relationship when it comes to filing taxes. And that's both at the federal level and or at the state level. And
Right.
for some of us, like in New York City, at the local level too, to be mindful. And then you do have what I like to say is your small business owner, right? So the small
Hmm.
business owner, in true layman terms, could be that person who has their side hustle. And so then
Right.
great, they're doing their 9 to 5, but maybe on the side, they're also, offering some catering because they love to cook. And great, why not make, a quick buck too in doing what I love and offering this service to both family and friends and those who are referred out. So that small business owner could very well be the sole proprietor. You're operating as
Mm.
yourself. You're collecting the revenue or the sale for the service or good that you provided. And when it comes time for tax reporting, your due diligence as the sole proprietor business owner is to make sure that you're reporting both what you received as far as revenue or sales,
Hmm.
and then ultimately what's more important is what you expense, what you literally paid out in that same time frame, which again usually is aligned with the tax year. Don't want to leave out the small business owner that has, in my mind, elected to go a bit past the side business. And I don't want to say that you could be a sole proprietor and have $1 million company, absolutely so. But generally when you make that decision to what we kind of call legalizing your business operations, which is electing to incorporate what you're doing as a business. So if that's you electing to become a corporation and you're structuring your business as a corporation, or you're structuring your business as what most of us kind of hear on those social media platforms, the LLC or
Right.
the limited liability company. Because, oh my goodness, when I hear that LLC, I'm like, listen now, not everybody has to be an LLC
I
because
mean, that is a scam
immediately,
in itself. It's
I mean,
like
yeah,
everybody
it's
has
like,
an IG
come
video
on,
about being
be an
LLC. Wait,
LLC.
what? Do you know that you then will have to do taxes for that LLC? Like,
Absolutely. But do you even, but what we want you to know here at T3 is what are the most advantageous components of incorporating your business as an LLC? Because there are a lot, not just for
right,
tax purposes, but
right.
primarily for the business owner to take what I kind of call that next step
Hmm.
in solidifying and more importantly, taking on the legal entity relationship is protecting your personal assets. and
Right,
and to
right.
me that's that real difference between the small business owner saying, hey, you know what, I'm willing to take on some more risks, so I'm going to go and get that storefront, right? I'm going to start hiring some people because I want to be able to generate more revenue and do more for those
Hmm.
that I'm offering said service or selling goods to, and knowing that you can't do it all by yourself. That's a
Yeah.
reality check for the small business owner that wants to grow.
So
um,
that's interesting because I want to get into that about how can the different types of taxpayers that we're talking about, what are those things that they need to keep in mind when they're managing throughout the business throughout the year? Because I feel like sometimes people won't won't get to something till like November, December. And by then it might be too late, right? But if
Ooh,
they had just done things throughout the year
yep,
consistently, what are some of those things they should keep in mind? And, definitely highlight when they're appropriate for the different types of taxpayers, right? Like if we're
yeah.
talking about small businesses, et cetera.
And that's good. And for me, I think just kind of going back to the individual taxpayer, because we don't want to leave you guys out, right? Small
Right.
business is huge in the concept and discussion of taxation and accountancy. For the individual, when we hear, oh, you should do a budget, you should make sure you're keeping track of not just what your recurring costs are for living, such as your rent or mortgage,
Hmm.
paying your utility bills. Yes, that's part of your budget. But what else are you doing in managing your cash flow from your earnings? And are you doing appropriate, hopefully pre-tax savings or sometimes after-tax savings, which I
Right.
think we can, dip and dabble to a little bit further.
Hmm.
But nevertheless, when it comes to putting those practices in place, yeah, it's probably the same things you always heard,
Hmm.
right? Why do you have to buy a cup of coffee every day from Starbucks? Maybe make that cup of coffee before you leave. And not
Right.
everybody has the capacity to do it, but those are some of the things that we would be, talking to our individual taxpayers just on managing your daily cash flow, like
Okay.
some things that you could be doing different. Now, for the small business owner, or even again for that, sole proprietor, I called it the side hustle, but still operating a business on your own.
Hmm.
Now it's being more focused on not just your bank statement, right?
Right.
So I think for a lot of us, it's, we're operating a business, we have some cash in the bank, whether it's $1,000 or $100, and it's like we're good. But
Mm.
really, your bank statement doesn't speak to your full accounting picture. And so
Right.
then if you took on a loan, that dollar amount that you took on is not necessarily tax deductible. However, if you took on a loan and you started utilizing those loan funds to build up your business, whether that's buying extra supplies or
Right.
buying more inventory or paying down some of the bills that were perhaps maybe past due, whether it's subscription costs or,
Hmm.
the rent for your storefront, then you're talking about looking at, some tax deductions.
Right.
But it's knowing how best to use those dollar amounts that all just flow into the bank. Hence why you should be working with your accountant throughout the
Right.
year to truly understand what your bank statements are talking to your business. And
Well,
really what we
that's a
talk about
good
is
point.
financial health. Yeah.
Yeah, no, because so one of the things, especially when I started working with you, now I worked with a different CPA. It was my husband's CPA at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I just didn't think she really understood my world. And I was coming from church, and
Mm-hmm.
I was on 116th, and I saw
Yay.
your little sign hanging out your
Yeah.
office, and I was like, hmm, let me
Hmm.
check what this accounting service is about. And
Yeah.
it was great because you're a CPA and you help me throughout the year. So I can contact you and talk to you, like, oh, I'm not sure about this, or what do you think I should do? And you'll advise me of like, okay, well, these are the implications
Yep.
if you don't do this XYZ. Versus before I ever worked with a CPA, it was doing tax preparation through TurboTax, right? And there's nothing wrong with that or going
No.
to a tax preparer like H&R Block, but the difference is I can't talk to those people throughout the year to help me
Mhm.
manage, take advantage of certain strategies because they're only there to prepare my taxes. So I think people also need
Got
to
it.
recognize the difference between having a CPA and working with a tax preparer or, preparation software.
Yep.
They have advantages, but to me, I rather pay the little extra so
Mhm.
that I have someone that I can trust and be able to talk to and that really understands my financial situation.
And
And
that's
so,
fair.
I
Yeah, that's
yeah,
definitely
fair.
agree because with my situation, it's always I always say it's a little complicated because I am employed. I do independent
Business.
contract
Yeah.
and have a business. So it's like I have all these little buckets and I need someone to help me figure out what's the best way to make sure because I don't know about anybody else, but whenever tax season come around, I'm already stressed.
Yeah, but
yes.
but you know what, Nashi, you said it where you said, "I have these buckets," right? we like to kind of say, there's different moving pieces to your tax situation.
Mm-hmm.
And what the taxing agencies don't care about is those moving pieces,
Right.
Right.
individually, because ideally the taxing agencies, the IRS and the state taxing agencies, are looking at those buckets combined. And I say combined, and if you see my dot, my fingers are rising up, is because your wage earnings, that's great. Your consultant income, I'm already tagging you as the sole proprietor, right? And then ultimately, like you said, any and other business activity that you may be engaged in that is generating revenue, and hopefully you're tracking your expenses aligned with that revenue. You, the combined dollar amount is what then becomes the taxable component. And so
Right.
Right.
then how best to manage that so that it is most advantageous for you as a taxpayer.
Mm-hmm.
And we call like the H&R Block, the Jackson Hewitts, they're in our community. They're right
Mm-hmm.
alongside my boutique accounting firm location. I kind of call those the big box. That's like the
Yeah.
Yeah.
BJ's and the Costco's to
Yep.
your, premium market, where if you're going in there, you're going to get the olives that you want, right? And you
Right.
can choose the quantity that you like to have versus having
Mm-hmm.
to buy 3 bottles of the same, things of olives. And I only use that as an example because those are the things that we like to say, especially in the boutique world of accountancy, is your goal is to build the relationship with your client and the accountant to really establish what that financial blueprint
Right.
looks like for you, the individual, the small business owner, and more importantly and especially the sole proprietor, in the sense where you're being taxed alongside your personal taxes. And Damaris, I wanted to touch base because
Mm-hmm.
originally when we were laying this groundwork of what's a small business owner, like how does the individual taxpayer fall into this conversation, and then ultimately what could be
Right.
identified as the sole proprietor, I don't want to leave out the entrepreneur, because I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes that entrepreneur word and the small business word are so commingled. But
Right.
there's some differences, just in respect to that concept of having taken on more of an entrepreneurial approach to your business, which usually
Mm-hmm.
allows for greater risk, meaning you're willing to do much more scaling as the
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur. Your ideas are probably a bit more grand and big in the scope of how you're looking to generate the revenue, and who you're looking to kind of impede upon on getting your service, of offerings out there, or even the selling of your goods. And I was kind of thinking about that because I think most of us small business owners, and even us wage earners, always have a little bit of entrepreneurial spirit, right.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, no, I could do that. I know how to braid hair. But do I
Yeah.
want to braid hair for just my family and friends, or do I want them to refer me out to other people and then start braiding hair on everybody, that kind of thing. But the entrepreneur is not looking to just braid hair, family and friends, and then the referrals. The entrepreneur is looking to, offer hair braiding classes to the masses, and then saying, here's how I do it, and everybody else do it the same as me. Maybe establish, something more broad scope of just offering the local services to their immediate community. When it
Right.
comes to taxation, the real deal is it still yields the same, right?
Mm.
Managing not just your
Mm-hmm.
bank statement, but
Right.
understanding what those individual bank statement lines,
Mm-hmm.
for every spend, for every receive, how am I going to best manage that? How can I get more of that cash flow out to
Mm-hmm.
me as the business owner without having such a heavy tax effect? Like those
Right.
kind of things is where establishing that good working relationship with your accountant year round. And for some of us, who are tax professionals and offer their services year round, they're out
Mm-hmm.
there too. And they're very
Yeah.
knowledgeable about the tax code, which is good. However, I think the coupled knowledge of the financial component and understanding a set of financial statements, like an income statement, a balance sheet,
Right.
a
Right.
real statement of cash flows, that's where we want to kind of make sure, our business
Mm-hmm.
owners are key to be able to discuss their financial picture, not
And I
just
want to
like what their ending tax result is.
Right. And I want to throw out there too that I know for some it may sound like a CPA, I can't afford that.
I
And
love
I
this.
will just say to that is I looked for and the good Lord put in my pathway the a small business CPA
There you
firm. You
go.
know what I mean? And that
No,
made
you're
all the
right.
difference. For me, it was important that okay, I love that this accounting services firm is located in Harlem, where I
Check
was
mark.
living.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, okay, this is local business. And I went to your website. I'm like, okay, she looked legit. All right.
Okay. No,
Um,
you're right. I get this
I'm
a
like,
lot. I get this.
oh boy. And I'm like, real talk. I'm like, oh,
Big
Tariqah,
deal.
okay, we good.
That
Okay.
name,
Yep.
yeah, I know that
Okay.
name. I can
Okay.
say
That's
that.
South
Or
Harlem,
maybe,
you
yeah,
know.
there you go. No, but we
I
but we
mean,
get this a lot. And
eh,
again, I'll be honest. I'm hearing
mhm,
you. I'm
yeah.
hearing you. And when I get this feedback, these are all the boxes that I was looking to tick and check. And
Yeah.
I didn't mention it at the top, but I started my career in the corporate sector. That
Yeah.
that was where I went. And
Yep.
listening, I was speaking to you ladies and listening to some of the
Yeah.
past podcasts, all of those nuances and
Hmm.
experiences, I could say and attest to having been a woman of color, a Black woman in the corporate sector, in the accounting realm of those
Right.
corporate sectors, and more importantly, in the financial services industry,
Yes.
literally in the stock
Yes.
market component.
Yes.
Only one. And so then it was important for me to say, we should be able to have a comfort level in
Hmm.
talking to people who look like us, who
And
can
that it could
relate.
understand our background, right?
Yep.
Understand,
Who
okay,
can
these
relate.
are maybe right that can relate to this is why I'm choosing to go about this way financially. There's
Yep.
certain things that are just like, okay, that are more familiar with us. And
Yeah.
so that was important for me. And so what I'm saying to our listeners out there is that you by no means charge anything exorbitant. It was to me fairly priced.
I
And
appreciate
you'll
that.
find that when you support small businesses
Yep.
in your communities that you will get the best deal, and these are people that will actually put their heart and soul into it because it is their reputation and their brand in the community.
Yep.
So whereas like the big box tax
Yeah.
preparing companies, they have a slew of lawyers that can handle whatever, or a PR agency. You guys don't. And
Yep.
that's what I loved. And that's why we've been working together for over 7 years.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be with you forever
Yay.
unless
I'm
something
excited about
happens.
that. Yeah. No.
Yeah, no, no.
Like,
And
no, right now, we're good.
right, we're good. It's a relationship. And so I just had to bring that up because I think some people may be like, well, I can only afford the tax preparation stuff. I mean,
Fair.
honestly, if I'm saying like a couple $100s, but you're saving yourself thousands, you
You
do the
should
math,
you should
right?
do the math.
So
I
do the
agree.
math if that
Yeah,
works for you.
yeah.
But
It
I
has
just
to be
had to throw that out there
important.
because I really think it's important the
Fair.
understanding the difference and why that paying the extra, what you get out of that. And like as for me, again, I'm not going with Ernest and Young, right? I am
No,
doing
you're
this
right.
with a small business
You're right.
firm, but you have skin in the game too, Tarika,
Sure.
right?
Right? Like,
Right.
and it all, no, I can't go into Midtown and hire a
Hmm.
CPA because they're going to be charging me $350 an hour, or something like that. So
Hello.
for me, it was again so important because the need, at least the 10-year mark that we're at, was truly seeing my community, what I've been calling evolving. Yeah.
Yeah, I do want to get into though about while we talked about what businesses and individual taxpayers should keep in mind throughout the year,
Hmm.
but what should they also avoid? Because I
Ooh.
feel like there are a lot of pitfalls and people want to know that.
So some of those pitfalls, what I feel like is, and these are things to avoid, is to make sure that when you're giving guidance, especially from what I consider to be, and again, this is talking small business, but this is also for the individual too. So you're giving guidance from your tax professional, from your accountant, and let's say it's
Mhm.
just during tax season, and it's, hey, we discussed on how you could perhaps maybe have a lower tax bill or potentially have a higher refund. We talked about contributing to a New York 529 plan for your child. So in the next tax year, when I see you, if I ask, so did you contribute to that New York 529 plan so we could increase your state refund? And you'd be like, oh, no, I didn't do it. It's like, come on. I shared that with you. I gave you
Right,
the
right,
link. You
right.
were sitting in my office. We
You
could have
said,
did the
here's the alley
application.
oop. Here's the assist for the
Come
alley
on.
oop.
And so then I didn't wind up getting the assist if you didn't actually, do your
Right.
part. And so then I say that about like kind of practicing what's preached to you, and kind of
Mm-hmm.
putting those things in place. And yes, we're all
Mm,
busy. Not
right.
everybody has enough time in their hand to do everything. I was just telling Damaris, I was just saying yesterday, man, there's not enough hours in a day.
Right.
But however, and I mean, I say, but however, what makes best use of the time that you have is to hopefully benefit you right then, and then
Mm-hmm.
obviously for the long term. And so then I wrote down a couple of things, right?
Yeah.
Definitely make sure, I think everything I'm saying to avoid are things that you should just be doing, which is reviewing and educating yourself, especially as a small business owner, on your financial picture, right? You should not wait until you're sitting down with your accountant to see how you really did for the year, right? And I know some of us small business owners, because we're getting in enough
Right.
just to be, to pay the bills, we're
Yeah.
thinking, nah, we're good, right? But when I tell you about reviewing and educating yourself about your financial picture, is to take a moment and truly sit down and say, how many clients did I land this month? And did I set a goal last quarter to land two more clients? Did I do that or didn't I?
So,
And if I
Tyrika,
didn't,
how
let me
often
figure it
should
out.
one do
Go for
that?
it.
No, that's great. How often
Yeah,
should one do that? Monthly, quarterly?
that's
What
a
do you
good
think?
question. Honestly, from our experience, we find that it is usually most feasible on the quarter end. And
Right.
normally, how we engage with our retainer clients is to present a set of financials, whether you really want to look at them or not, but we're popping them right in front of your face. It's been times you can ask my staff, I'll show up at your location because you didn't have time to come see me. And I'm like, hey, remember that income statement I wanted to talk to you
Mm,
about? You see this meals line right here? This meals line is too long. It's too,
mm.
it's too big. We only could deduct 50% of these meals.
No,
So,
that she does that to me every year. She's like,
yeah.
okay, I got your meals. She's like, we're gonna do 50% of that. I'm like, all right, I'm
Oh,
just throwing it in there because you know what? Uncle Sam
shit.
can go kiss my
Yeah.
whatever. And I'm just like, I'm
But
tired.
is there
So
a way to to benefit a little
right.
bit more and maybe get a bit more bang of the business cash flow out to you? Sure, if you're taking a W-2 payroll relationship with your business,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps maybe we could reimburse you, 100% of that meals, let it be fully tax deductible for the business as a reimbursement to an employee, and you still get the cash from the business for it, 100%
Right.
tax free. So, some of those things could also lend itself to become strategies, which is why it's important to really take notice of that and not
Mm-hmm.
kind of sit back and be like, well, I'm
And wait
coasting
to
my
the
bank
last
account.
minute.
Yeah, my bank account
Right.
is not on E, so I'm good. But it's like,
Right.
how about if that bank account could be a
Yeah,
little bit higher? Or how about if that credit
yeah,
card statement could be a little bit lower? And
yeah. No,
then,
I'm glad you brought that up. 'Cause
yeah,
just to kind of piggyback on that,
yeah,
I'm that person that will wait till like the very end, and my accountant, he
okay,
gets it to me every time. He's like,
okay.
"Didn't
So
we
he's
talk
opposite.
about this
Yeah,
last year?"
He's like, I just told you this last
yeah,
year.
yeah. So
How many
please, come
times?
on.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
I need
which,
to get in that habit of looking
mm-hmm,
at my numbers quarterly, which
mm-hmm,
I
good for
haven't,
you.
I'll be
Oh,
honest.
oh, okay. Well,
I need
you will,
to.
and it will be good for you.
She acknowledges that she needs to do that. That's good.
Okay.
That's step
That's a
number
first
one.
start. Yeah, that's a first
Okay.
start. Yeah. But I'm trying to make sure I'm invested in myself as the small business owner to
Yeah.
truly continue to develop, this financial blueprint and this good one-on-one working relationship with our
Right.
clients and CPAs.
You talked about it a little bit, but there's so many changes that have been happening, and you and I and Nachi's talked about it off, camera, whatever,
Yeah.
off the mic, about the implications of what's been going on the last 4 years. And then on top of that, I feel like there are constantly changes with different tax policies,
Yeah.
especially when we change, presidents and stuff like that. They have
Yeah.
different views on how to manage the IRS and tax policies. So, what are some of the major tax changes that small business owners and individual preparers should be aware that could potentially impact them?
Right. I mean, I think right now, especially like we're in an election year, right? Obviously, we could do a whole podcast on this election year. Um, but generally, what happens, especially in a presidential election year, most of the discussion around the the Senate or the House is, you know, tax law changes, or just law changes, or things that could be better for us as individuals, us within the economy. We're seeing so many different components of downturn in the market. Oh, the market flipped back up. So it's like, what does that really mean for me? Should I really be going to check my 401k on that day and then the next, or something like that? But I think one of the most biggest component of tax law change was during Trump's administration, where there were huge changes, especially in my lifetime, and more importantly, of being an accountant working in and around taxation for over 20 plus years. It's seeing these more recurring type of tax law that we were also very used to having changed. And now, what's more important is these rules, which were deemed Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, or you may have heard a lot of discussion, especially in most recent months, called TCJA, and the expiration of those tax laws that were implemented back in really the 2018 tax year, so
Mm,
pre-COVID, and then really seeing a lot of the impact of those changes in and around our COVID years, which I say years, 2021, 22,
right.
and now the expiration of those laws that were new then and now coming to an end, or what they
Mm,
say the sunset of 2025. So as the accountant, especially as a tax accountant, I don't think it's too early to start talking about what does that mean for us
right.
as individual taxpayers, and more importantly, especially for the small business owner. So highlight just a couple of what
Hmm.
we know are looking to expire. And again, this is at the end of 2025. So though won't have any true impact on our tax filings when we start them in early 2025 during that tax season.
Right.
But again, like, these are the implications to say, okay, so how does this change? I think one of the biggest ones, especially talking to, us New Yorkers and the New York area, is what was called the cap on state and local taxes. So for us homeowners who pay a real estate tax, you are no longer allowed, at least from 2018 through the end of 2025, to have no more than $10,000 of your real estate taxes capped. And so then I mentioned New Yorkers because for a lot of us homeowners in New York, whether you're in the New York City area or out in the counties, your real estate taxes for the year are normally greater than 10,000. And that could be across many of different states. So it wasn't just New York that had this impact where you were no longer able to take 100% of what you pay out in real estate taxes
Right.
Yeah.
for a true tax deduction, which ultimately the tax deduction will lower your taxable income and therefore lower your tax bill, if any, or potentially have a, means for a refund, which is
Right.
what we would like to, look for as our tax season kind of comes upon us. And so then that tax rule expiring, it's big for a lot of us because granted that, the administration that's in place allows it to expire, great, because then we're going to get back some benefits that we once, oh, for the past 6 7 years we haven't had, or 5 6 years, sorry, that we haven't had. And so then these are things to be looking forward to. But I say
Right.
that to the extent of also strategizing on what you may do with some of that extra tax benefit,
Yeah.
right? Not enough to
Right.
just say, oh, all right, we're going to get a bigger refund. It's like, oh, okay, so what can
No.
we do to make that work for us? And those are the things
Right.
that you could be looking forward to. Another big one, again, and these are for homeowners, is there's a cap right now up to $750,000 on a home mortgage that you're not allowed to take all of your mortgage interest if your home is above that. And I bring that up, and that's not
My
necessarily saying,
goodness. It's like,
yeah,
come
it's some
on.
more. And this could be when you have, one home and then maybe a vacation home that has those
Right.
mortgages. These are things that right now us tax professionals, tax accountants have to be very mindful of, to educate our clients to say, hey, like, if you're thinking about, making that next purchase for another home, you may want to forego that until this
Right.
tax law, is expired, which again is that sunset of 2025.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember, because this is more relative to all of us, especially, us workers who may have those union dues or pay out of pocket for uniform cost or
Hmm.
pay out of pocket for travel, things of that nature. Right now, the tax law is you're no longer able to take those, what was called itemized deductions for unreimbursed employee expenses. And I still get those questions to this day where I'll have a client come in new and say, but can I deduct my union dues? Here are they, here they are. I'm like, oh no, unfortunately, that
Right.
tax law is not applicable right now. But that's another one that's looking to expire at the end of 2025. And so, again, these are things that you may have considered, all right, they don't count anymore. So I'm not even going to worry about my charitable contributions because I know I don't have enough. But now it's like, yeah, no, let's start
Yeah.
tracking all of those things all over again and maybe give some incentive so that you are doing a little bit more charity because now I'm looking forward to taking 100% of my real estate taxes as a
Right.
deduction. Some of those
Right.
unreimbursed employee expenses for union dues I mentioned, or, some travel or dry cleaning. Oh my goodness, I still get that question like, but I dry clean all my suits. Oh, unfortunately, you can't take that as a
Yeah.
tax deduction right now, right?
And this is the
Um,
thing where where they talk about squeezing the middle class, and this is
oh my
exactly where
gosh.
it's just like we're coming to a place where you either have to be ultra rich or very poor.
Yeah,
And it's like, and if you go above a threshold slightly above poverty, then you no longer can get these
as
tax
many
deductions. It's
benefits.
just
Yeah.
like, what is, so you don't want me to succeed? And this is why, I mean,
And hence why we say, especially during election years and not only at the presidential level, but
right.
here's why, thinking at your state and local level is
Yes.
important, right?
Yes.
You really should understand what your state and local representatives have in mind for your
Right.
community as taxpayers, or what's their real idea about economic
Hmm.
policy. It's apparent in the US that there's no one excluded, if you ask me,
No.
whether you're employed,
Right.
self-employed, small business owner. We all have some sort of tax impact, and normally those decisions come from our policymakers. If that's if we could all make our own
Right.
tax laws, then we'll be a whole different environment of a country.
Right. How about
But
I don't pay
ultimately,
taxes?
yeah.
I
So
don't
how about
know.
I don't? And don't get me wrong, that's a whole nother podcast topic too. It's like, yeah, if I don't have a social security number, then I don't have to pay
Oh,
taxes.
that's another IG thing.
Oh yeah.
Don't get your birth
Don't
certificate or social security number. Good luck in living in this country. But all right.
Right.
Or good
I
luck
mean,
in
I'm
even
sure there are
securing a
ways.
job. Oh no, they are.
Yeah.
However,
Yeah.
like I
There
said,
are ways to get around it.
I think that's a whole nother topic,
That
of
is. That
discussion,
is.
right?
And that's the whole point of why I stress the idea of having an accountant that you work with throughout the year
Oh yeah.
because of things like that, right? Like, I'm not going to know that as a regular person. I'm not following the policies and identifying like, oh, that's a benefit that I could take,
Right.
even though
Right.
as a small business, as an S corp, like, oh, I could
Yeah.
actually benefit the
Benefit
same
from
way
that.
these big corporations do.
Yep.
But as this is all like a lot of good information, and I think definitely a lot of nuggets people can walk away with. But before we close out, I'd love to
Yeah.
hear, you've already been talking about some of these things, but what are some of those tax saving initiatives that people should really consider making before the year end and
Yeah.
then beyond? And I say that because when we post this is going to be around September. So people
Oh
are going to
good.
have a full on quarter
Perfect.
to close out the year and do what they got to
Perfect.
do. And so I
Perfect.
love to hear about that.
Yeah, and something, I love that you segued into that quarter. So most of us accountants talk to the quarter end. A lot of the self-employed, business owners, they understand quarterly
Hmm.
taxes, or sometimes they don't understand quarterly taxes, and
Right.
we're educating them about what does that really mean. Do you have to pay estimated quarterly taxes, or not, right? And,
Right.
and more importantly, again, being knowledgeable about taking advantage of tax saving initiatives
Yep.
doesn't really happen always in the tax season. So implementing them throughout the year, but more importantly, taking advantage of what now could be, hey, you know what? It's holiday time. Here's some things that we could be doing even in the form of gift. And I kind of lead that with the New York, well, the 529 plan, right? And hence I was saying New York, so born and bred New Yorker, right? But I could speak specifically to our New York 529 plan. And again, across different states, there may be some different rulings in regards to what could be your tax saving initiative. So, what is the New York 529 plan? It's a college savings education platform, yet most of the 529 plans have been shifted to allow you to also use those funds and savings for K through 12. So if your child is in a Catholic school setting or a private school setting where there's a tuition base, you may contribute to this platform and also use those funds for tax-free, withdrawals, which is strategy based. I could attest to it. I have my middle guy who's in a Catholic school, has a tuition, and I've been utilizing the 529 plan where in New York, at the state level only, you may deduct up to $10,000 for your married, filing jointly couples or $5,000 for your single head of household. They do not have to be your children. You may open up a 529 plan for niece, nephew, goddaughter, godson, friend, and they
Wow.
do have to be a child, just as a
Right.
heads up. And they do need a
My nephew
social.
who's
Yeah,
45.
you do need a
Adult.
social because I usually get the question, so what about my dog? And I'm like, yeah, no. Do they have a social security number? No, but I spend so much money on my dog. So can
Not for
I,
nothing. I have my
yeah,
cats, and I be wondering, like, why can't I
why
deduct
can't I deduct
the
this? I mean,
vets,
don't
the
get me wrong. There are ways to deduct some costs for having a dog, but of course that has to be medically driven, so we can
right?
have that conversation if need be. We understand it, we know it.
Okay,
But for the
okay,
most part, it's like, you can't contribute
right.
to a savings plan that's tax deductible for your dog. I'm sorry. And I know
The
most
withdrawal
people,
has to be
love
toward.
their pets. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. But again, I'm saying that in and around
Okay,
this time
that's
of the
great.
year because instead of the gift of $50 in a card to your niece and nephew for Christmas, open up a
Mm-hmm.
529 plan. You then get to deduct that at the state level.
Mm,
And I bring up $50, but it could be $50 a year, $50 a
right.
month, right? That
Yeah.
really will start to tally up to $600 for the year. So why not? Like, why aren't I taking advantage of that? And then the beauty of it is reinvestment savings for your loved
Mm,
ones, and you get the tax benefit and lowering your taxable income at the state
I
level.
love it.
So to me, that's a big plus. And generally, how you would check to see if your state is applicable for the tax savings, it's usually a quick search on, I would say, your state Department of Taxation site. A
Okay.
Google may yield you same, but definitely go directly to the source. And or of course, just talk to your tax professional or tax accountant. I don't want to leave out, and again, this is for those individuals who most of us homeowners are like, great, we own a home, great, we could deduct our mortgage interest. I told you right now, some of those deductions for homeowners have been limited in the past, 5 to 6 years. So, what are some other things that us individual taxpayers could do if you're doing any home improvements that are solar or home energy saving based? Those may actually be tax deductible, so definitely make sure you're keeping track of that. This is things like replacing windows, right? I had a
Mm,
client who did replacement of some windows in the basement, and we just were talking about it. I said, oh, but we asked you on our client info form if you did any home improvements. They were like, yeah, but we only spent like $1,000. I'm like, wait, what? We can do up to a $300 credit. Like, for me, every dollar counts. That
Right.
was
yes, it
just
adds up.
talking
It
and
adds up.
happenstance, right? But even presenting to the client the question, did you do any, home energy
Mm-hmm.
savings? They didn't think that the windows was, but nowadays all windows are home energy
Right.
savings. It's just the way that they're made. And I think the biggest one for most of us homeowners are the solar panels, which I say definitely are home energy savings for and at federal and state level, but definitely make sure you're having the conversation with your tax professionals so
Mm,
that you understand what's truly applicable to your tax situation for true savings.
right.
And then if most of us haven't, but I think this is another big topic that has been coming down in the past year or two, which is the electrical vehicle credit.
Mm,
So that's another one, like your EV credit. If you're purchasing an electrical vehicle, there's actually huge tax savings incentives. But again, it's very specific. So it's the type
mm,
of electric vehicle that you're purchasing, and making sure that it has the right battery component usage. So the tax law is very specific. So again, that's
Right.
another conversation. I would say before the car dealer sells it to you, hop on the line with your accountant that hopefully you have that year-round relationship with to make sure that it's truly applicable. And
And
then, oh, go
and
for it.
before you buy that EV, think
Yeah.
about the batteries that are being mined in
Uh-oh.
Africa. Look that
Uh-oh.
up.
So,
Yeah.
Okay.
so even more importantly, because I'm with you,
The
Janelle,
environmental impact.
it definitely has to align with your personal preference too. There's some
Yes.
impacts on that.
Right.
It's not always just about taxation.
Right.
Your firm beliefs should be applicable, and
Right.
don't let it kind of sway you into doing something just because your
Right.
accountant said. But I
Right.
appreciate that because normally my brain is strictly thinking those numbers.
No, no, but that's
So, and this
you
is what we're
no,
talking
no,
But that's
Tariq,
good.
right.
But that's
But that's
great.
how right, and that's how Nachi and I are on this show because it's like think about everything in holistically,
Sure.
totality of it, right? It's not always about saving. Yes, you want to save as much as you can and not give to the government because
Sure.
they're the biggest scammers. But
But
the
not
reality
at
is,
the
you know,
not yeah.
th- what aligns with me morally? Because
Yeah.
with my financial advisor, there are certain things I refuse to
But
invest in for my 401k, even though it is not beneficial for me to not invest in those types of companies. But I
look at
won't
that.
because I
Look
need
at
to
that.
sleep at night.
Look at that. But again, those are the things that if you don't have that established relationship
Right.
with your financial advisor who's assisting in making some decisions on your financial portfolio, that in their mind, the number side of things is
Right.
to
Yeah.
get the best bang for my client. Because I know for
Absolutely.
us, we're always constantly
It's
thinking,
a
how do
fiduciary
you get the best?
responsibility, which it
Yeah,
should be.
ultimately, your
I
ethics are kind of ingrained
right.
in it too.
Yeah.
You
But
touched
yes,
on, yeah,
anyway.
you touched on something really good because advice having your
Yep.
accountant, having your financial planner, and definitely for the small business owners, having that business lawyer or even your lawyer as part of your team, super duper
Right.
important. I don't want to leave out real quick, just making sure you're investing in your individual retirement accounts, especially for
Mm,
this quarter, even though you do have up until the tax filing due date of the next year. So you could
mm-hmm.
easily also invest up to $7,000 into a traditional IRA and perhaps utilize that as a tax saving initiative, really depending upon what your total gross income is or adjusted gross income. So that's very specific, and that's definitely something to make sure that you're having the conversation. Or again, that could be a very quick search, whether it's
Right.
directly where your IRAs are held to say, oh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
like I can invest up this much more and I have until this date to do so for tax year
Right.
2024. And don't forget to really utilize your employer relationship for those offerings that they do have. If it's the health savings account, because you have the high deductible, that's a great
Mm-hmm.
pre-tax saving initiative. Or if it's the FSA, where you get to contribute for perhaps maybe childcare in a pre-tax means. And again, these are some great tax saving
Mm-hmm.
initiatives that if you don't have them in place today, yeah, this is the time to start researching,
Right.
opening those accounts up before year end, utilizing quarter end, to truly see if you could budget. Again, I don't need to get that baby doll. I can gift them in a 529 and
Right.
then
Yep.
look for the
yeah.
tax savings in the next year. Of
There you
course,
go.
get them the baby doll if they absolutely want it. But
Right. Right. Right.
I'm telling you to do
But
some.
balance it out.
That's
Balance
an
it out.
expensive
Yeah,
one.
I'm telling you to make sure you get, again, to make sure that you're getting the benefit of what could possibly be great tax savings.
Awesome. No, that's a great list, and I think that there's a lot that different types of people, depending on where they are in life, or if they're a small business owner
Yeah,
or a sole proprietor, for individual taxpayer, there are lots that they should consider and think about applying for this quarter
sure.
and beyond. And again, always connect with your tax
Yeah,
professional, your accountant to see what makes sense for your overall picture.
I agree. Definitely.
That, yeah, but that I want to say, Tarika, thank you so much
You know
for,
something?
Yeah.
You're
yeah,
welcome. You'll be like, you're welcome. No,
thank
but this was
you.
good. I was really looking forward to hanging out with you ladies after
Okay.
hearing the podcast a couple of times, or even, the one time I think I was sitting on the porch and we were kind of like chatting business.
Yeah.
But
Right,
but
right.
but that ease of being able to talk about what I love, which I
Yeah.
do really love this
Yes,
stuff.
No,
ma'am.
we can tell you
Yes,
are very passionate and full of information, and that's why
and we
like,
love it.
yes, but that's
Yeah.
what you want. Like I'm confident. Like, okay, I'm gonna be with you
Yes,
till I go to the grave. Thank
You're
you.
like, yay. Yeah. You know, sometimes I was teasing because I said, as much as I like to be like in the office setting, part of me shifting from corporate America is a mom of three. I'm a wife, I'm a
Right,
sister, you know, I'm a daughter. I'm all of these wonderful, great things to my family, but never really having that time to enjoy being, you know, those great things to my family. And now
right.
right.
having this work family life balance on my own accord, it
Yeah,
means a lot to be
Well,
able
yeah,
to
it's
enjoy
huge.
it, and then look how great it is to be able to share it, especially with
yeah.
two beautiful ladies, two beautiful sisters, you know. So
Thank
so for
you.
me, I appreciate you ladies for having me.
Absolutely. No, no,
No,
no.
we
We
appreciate you. This is.
yeah.
I mean, you gave a lot of information,
Yes.
stuff that I wrote down so that I can
Okay,
take to
goody,
my.
goody, goody,
Told
goody.
my Marika told me.
He's like, who's this damn Tariqah?
Yeah, exactly. Don't let an
Yeah,
accountant, don't let someone come in brand new to our firm. Like I had this
right.
last year where not this past tax season, you know, a little bit of creative taxation. Oh my gosh, I was pulling the pubs out. The publications are tax, you know, tax rules and guidelines. I'm pulling pubs out like, you know something, I could see where they were going with this. However, you know, it's like, and so you get so near and dear to it. So I won't, don't feel no kind of way if your accountant is like, yeah, well, listen, because even though, you know,
Right.
it's all of those words. It's a lot of like that feeling of, okay, yeah, they
Basically.
shared it, but let me tell it to you
Right,
in this
right,
way, you know.
right, right, right. No, no, it's
It's for
yeah.
love.
No,
But yeah, I was
it is
gonna
all
say, but I
love.
love it. I love it. I love it. Really, this was good. I appreciate you all.
Good. No, I'm glad again, like we are super grateful that you're able to come on and share your knowledge and the passion behind it. And that is a
Cool.
beautiful thing. And I think I love to see our people do it and I love to see our community thriving. And part of our show, not even part of it, what we do, our
Hmm.
main driver is we want us to thrive. Anybody
Nice,
that resonates with our message, this you're part of our community. So
nice.
we're not surviving, we are thriving in this world and we're elevating our vibrations.
Yeah,
So,
I love
you
that.
know, yes. And so with that being said, I'm going to close out the way we always close out. And I
Okay.
don't know how many of y'all get to the end of the show. I hope y'all do. So this should be familiar to you. But there's a lot of noise out there. But our message is consistent. Stop getting distracted by the smoke and mirrors, i.e., the elections. Okay, whatever. I'm going to stay out of that. Tune out the noise and focus on your divine purpose in life. Vibrate higher to elevate your frequency and always thank you for listening.